The hidden secret in Psalm 23 that can change your life forever. I used to think Psalm 23 was the psalm you memorize for a funeral and never really think about again. A nice, calm poem about a shepherd, good for a greeting card, not much left to discover after the 10th read-through. Then I actually looked closely at the structure of the psalm, not just the words, but the shape they form, and realized David buried something in it that most readers walk right past. It isn't a hidden code or a secret verse. It's something simpler, and once you see it, hard to unsee. Most people remember Psalm 23 as a psalm about peaceful imagery. Green pastures, still waters, a table prepared. But look closely at what happens exactly in the middle of the psalm, at verse 4, and you'll notice something the rest of the psalm doesn't do anywhere else. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Psalm 23:4. Up until that verse, David has been talking about God in the third person. He makes me lie down. He leads me. He restores my soul. Verses 2 to 3. And then, precisely at the moment darkness enters the psalm, the pronoun shifts. God stops being he and becomes you. David stops describing the shepherd from a distance and starts speaking directly to him. That's the hidden structure most people never notice, because we read Psalm 23 as a flowing whole rather than tracking its grammar sentence by sentence. But once you see it, the pattern is unmistakable. David only shifts into direct, second-person address exactly when he enters the valley of the shadow of death. Confidence about God, spoken from a safe distance, becomes intimacy with God, spoken face to face, at precisely the moment things get frightening. The psalm is quietly teaching something enormous through nothing more than a change in pronoun. Nearness to God isn't primarily discovered in the pleasant seasons. It's discovered, or at least it becomes personal, in the dark ones. There's a second detail in the structure worth noticing. After the valley of the shadow of death in verse 4 comes verse 5. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Most people read this as two separate images loosely strung together. First a scary valley, then a nice meal. But the order matters. The table doesn't come instead of the enemies. It comes in the presence of them. David isn't describing a rescue where the danger disappears before the blessing arrives. He's describing a table set down in the middle of ongoing threat. Provision that doesn't wait for the enemies to leave the room first. This flips a common, quiet assumption a lot of us carry into hard seasons. The belief that God's blessing and comfort are things that arrive only once the trouble has passed. Once the enemy, the diagnosis, the conflict, the fear has cleared out. Psalm 23 pictures something different. A table prepared right there, with the threat still visibly present, unresolved, sitting at the edge of the scene. Provision and peace in this psalm are not the reward for the valley ending. They're what's available inside the valley before it ends. The Hebrew phrase usually translated valley of the shadow of death is Tzalmavet, and there's genuine scholarly discussion about its exact meaning. Some read it more simply as deep darkness or deep shadow, without the specific word death built directly into it. But even taking the more traditional reading, the word choice itself carries something worth noticing. A shadow, however dark, is not the same as the thing casting it. A shadow of death is not death itself. It has the shape of the threat, the darkness of the threat, even something of the chill of the threat. But it lacks the substance, the finality, the actual power of the thing it resembles. David isn't claiming immunity from frightening seasons. He's naming something more precise. What he's walking through has death's outline, without death's authority over him, because of who is walking through it with him. It's worth being honest about something the psalm doesn't actually claim. David never says he feels nothing frightening in the valley. He says, "I will fear no evil," a statement of resolve and trust, not a claim of emotional numbness. This distinction matters enormously for anyone who has ever felt guilty for being afraid during a hard season, as though real faith should have eliminated the fear entirely. Psalm 23 doesn't ask David to pretend the valley isn't dark. It shows him walking directly through it, honestly, while choosing not to let that fear have the final authority over him. Because, as the very next clause explains, "For you are with me." The antidote to fear in this psalm was never the absence of danger. It was presence, a specific named companionship walking through the danger alongside him. Verse 4 mentions both a rod and a staff, and it's easy to read past them as a single generic shepherd's tool. They weren't the same instrument, and the distinction adds something worth noticing. A shepherd's rod was typically a short, sturdy club used for defense, fighting off predators, striking anything that threatened the flock. The staff was longer, hooked at the end, used to guide sheep gently, pull one back from wandering too close to danger, or rescue one that had fallen. Together, they represent two different postures of care from the same shepherd, one that fights on your behalf, and one that gently redirects and rescues you. David says both of these comfort him, not despite being reminders of real danger and real waywardness, but because both point to a shepherd actively, practically engaged in his protection, not a distant figure offering vague reassurance from far away. The psalm ends with one of its most quoted lines, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." Psalm 23:6. The word "surely" here isn't wishful thinking tacked onto the end of a nice poem. In the structure of the psalm, it functions as David's conclusion, the logical outcome of everything he's just walked through. Because the shepherd led him through green pastures, because the shepherd stayed present through the valley, because the shepherd prepared a table in the presence of enemies, David arrives at a settled, confident conclusion about the rest of his life. Goodness and mercy aren't occasional visitors. They're described as actively pursuing him. The Hebrew verb behind follow carries a sense of active pursuit, not passive trailing, for as long as he lives. It's worth remembering who's actually writing this. David wasn't a poet imagining shepherd life from the outside. He spent his early years actually doing this work, defending sheep from lions and bears with his own hands, as he later tells Saul in 1 Samuel 17:34-36. When David calls God his shepherd, he isn't reaching for a nice metaphor he'd heard used elsewhere. He's describing, from first-hand experience, exactly what a good shepherd actually does under real threat, and then saying, with complete confidence, that God does all of that for him. The imagery in this psalm isn't decorative. It's testimony from someone who knew precisely what the job required, applying that knowledge directly to his own relationship with God. If you're in a genuinely dark season right now, grief, sickness, financial fear, a relationship falling apart, Psalm 23 isn't offering you a promise that the valley will be short, or painless, or invisible. It's offering something more specific and, I think, more useful. The promise that the pronoun shifts here too. That the God who felt distant and third person during the easier seasons becomes intensely, personally present exactly when things get dark. Not despite the darkness, but often specifically because of it. And it's offering the picture of a table, set and ready, right in the middle of whatever's still threatening you, rather than waiting patiently on the other side of it for the danger to clear first. I don't think this psalm was ever meant to be read once and filed away as comforting but finished. Every time I've gone back through a hard season since first noticing that pronoun shift, I've found myself testing it against my own life. Was God more distant to me or nearer in the darkest stretch I've walked through? For me, if I'm honest, it was nearer, almost without exception, even when it didn't feel that way in the moment. I'd like to know what your answer is. In the hardest valley you've walked through, did you find God more distant or nearer than you expected? Tell me in the comments. I think a lot of people carry an answer to that question they've never actually said out loud before. Father, thank you for meeting me specifically in the valleys, not just in the green pastures, for becoming near and personal exactly when things get dark instead of distant. Teach me to trust that the table you're preparing doesn't wait for my enemies to leave the room first. When I walk through deep shadow, remind me that it is only a shadow, not the thing itself, because you are walking through it with me. Let goodness and mercy pursue me the way they pursued David all the days of my life. In Jesus' name, amen.